I will start the meeting this evening with citizens' concerns and comments. Since there are none, we'll go to the regular session minutes on November 5th. I need a motion to accept
I'll
November
make a
5th.
motion to accept the November 5th school committee minutes.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And next we'll go to the student representatives report, please.
Hi. After last week's, 2 weeks ago, the last meeting, the presentation of the middle school students with what they're going to do to help recycle, myself and Miss Aries at the high school, we came up with a plan to try and get all of the schools involved to some degree or another, as much as they're capable, in environmental awareness, etc. And our ultimate goal would be to have a club that would start at the elementary school level and be called the same thing as you go up through the middle school and the high school, and something that would allow them to get involved. We sent emails to, I know Julia Bancroft School, I'm not sure of the others, we haven't heard back from them yet, but so I don't have much to offer in terms of actual progress, but this is something that we hope we can get kids environmentally aware at a young age. And who knows, you heard the statistics last week, but that's just the middle school. What if the whole town?
That's right.
That would be incredible. Another thing we're doing is the environmental club. We're hosting a carpooling day this Thursday. So if one normally drives to the high school, if you now pick up a few of your friends instead of 3 cars going, that's now 1 car. And we're offering incentives. I think you get to wear a hat if you carpool to school, and we're going to see, bonus points from certain teachers. Who knows? But and we're hoping that that'll be the first in a number of environmentally active activities that we can support at the high school.
Good.
That's innovative.
That is
I like
nice.
that.
Very green of you.
Thank you.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Cool. I can always do anything we can do for you. Let us know if you need bins or whatever you need. Just let us know.
Thank you.
Hi. This weekend, November 22nd, the 23rd, and the 24th, the high school will be putting on Bye Bye Birdie. It's a play that's showing all 3 nights, and Derek and I aren't a part of it, but the cast is very good, and they've been working on it for a number of weeks. And I stopped by today just to see how it was going, and they sound very, very good. So I think it'd be great if anyone who can could go and support them. They've been working very hard. And the tickets are...
They're $10 for adults and $8 for students and seniors. And we were happy to present the members of the school board today with 1 free ticket to the play.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it looks like it starts at 7:30 for Friday and Saturday.
And then
And-
2 p.m. on Sunday.
Matinee.
Great.
I think that's all we have for
You're not
today.
going to tell us about the competition and how that went? And
Uh,
did you have? Oh, was it a competition or was it a festival?
It was a competition and it didn't go so well. So I prefer to move on from
Did
that.
you have fun?
Yes, I had a good time.
That's okay. That's you're there. That's great. Okay, is that the end of your report for this evening?
I think Rachel has to run
Yeah,
off
I
and
have
do
to
homework,
run,
but
Okay.
so-
but I'll be
All
sticking around.
Excellent.
Rachel has an
Good.
exam.
I have an exam. Thank you.
Good luck.
All right.
All right.
Have a good evening.
You can just keep going.
We're going to make you tell us how you did on the exam now, you know.
But did you have fun?
And Dr. Brunel, I'm not sure why you get such amazing treatment, but we were told from the people putting on the play that you may have as many tickets as you would like.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is presentation that the school committee wanted to make to Miss Elizabeth Johnson. If she wants to come up to the podium, please. As everyone knows, Beth has retired, and I just wanted to tell everybody in the audience a little bit about your career here. Beth spent all but one of her 35-plus year career in education within the Auburn Public Schools. After graduation from UMass Amherst, Beth spent 1 year in Union 61 as a elementary music teacher, and then came to Auburn in September of 1973. After many years as a music teacher, Beth took on the responsibility of supervisor of music in 1987, followed by supervisor of fine arts in 1994. With Dr. Elaine Tataronis' departure in the summer of 1996, Beth then became interim principal of Mary D. Stone School and was appointed principal the following year. As we all know, she continued in the role of principal of Mary D. Stone School until June 2008, and will be sorely missed by all of us. It is for that dedication to the Auburn Public Schools that we honor Beth this evening by presenting her with a gift to thank her sincerely for serving the children of Auburn so very well for so many years. Beth, thank you so much, and we will truly miss you.
This has been the longest retirement. Anyone who begins partying at the end of May and is still partying in November. But I have to thank everyone connected with the Auburn Public Schools for being part of my career. It's been, I don't think many people can say that when they go to work because they truly love it. And it's not many people that can go to work every day and truly have fun and not look at the clock. But that's what my career was like. Now, Jay told me not to say it, but Bye Bye Birdie, I met Jay Johnson in 1972 because he was in my Bye Bye Birdie. He was very good.
I didn't know he was a song and dance.
Yes, he was. He also taught me how to. Yeah, he was very. So was I. He also taught me how to paint a bench because I painted it with glossy paint, and you never use glossy paint on stage. I was the teacher. I didn't know that. He did. How's that? I thank the school committee for the support over the years. You have definitely given years of your lives to help us help children. Liz, from when I was fine arts supervisor, your voice was always there supporting music and art.
Oh, thank you.
It touched you and it touched me to know that I had a face on the committee that was willing to stand up for what children truly need. Ron, from teaching with you to working with you, whether you were a fellow colleague as a teacher or as my boss or as a school committee real boss, I thank you. It has been years. A few weeks ago, Ron and I stood in the high school lobby and we looked over all the different plaques, and we could remember all the students except for one, and I still haven't figured out that one.
Somebody from Millbury get on me.
Wayne, Janie, and Leanne, thank you very much for the support that you've given me. Support at school, friendship in town, and whether I see you now as a citizen or whether I see you as sometime, I hope to be running for the school committee, I hope you will give me good advice as to how to achieve my next goal in life. Thank you to my colleagues. You've been the best, and I do appreciate you calling me here tonight. It means a lot. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Good luck.
And in my little introduction here, I didn't talk about the Auburn Education Foundation, which is something that you founded that, and that has helped tremendously to fund initiatives that teachers wouldn't be able to do without that.
$170,000 since 1994.
$170,000 since 1994. That's quite an accomplishment, and I assume that this is something you'll continue to be doing in town, because it is so, so important. And thank you so much for that and all the things that you've done for us.
Thank you very much.
Dwayne?
Well, since I knew Beth, I've known Beth through the school system and out of the school system and other programs. I just want to say, Beth, I think the work you have done with children and continue to do just really, in plain English, blows my mind. The way you care about educating children, about the children in the community, different programs besides school, community programs, school programs, just the power that you have in you to do what you do. And I honestly, sincerely say thank you for your service, and hopefully you don't disappear, and hopefully you do stick around and help, because you're a great person and we need you. Thank you.
James,
Is
you can't talk. You can't talk, you're going to cry.
I know. Oh my God. I can't believe she's really going. It is quite personal for me, because you were the principal for my kids in the first grade. I know. I always tell people this story. Beth May was great for drawing volunteers into Mary D. And it was really amazing, because I think that really drew a lot of support for the Auburn schools. I can remember one day going in to volunteer, and I remember Mrs. Johnson was sitting there, and there was this little boy that she was explaining why he couldn't spit on the bus. And I remember sitting there saying to myself, God, I don't know if it's 7:30 in the morning I could explain to somebody why they can't spit in the bus. And she was so sweet and so nice about it, and the boy really, really understood after he came out, and I was like, wow, that is really a special gift. You really do have special gifts, and I hope you continue to use them in town to help children. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I say something to her?
Oh, of course you can.
She lives in the house I was brought up. So I said, she and I shared bedrooms. And somehow that got translated into our mail you being addressed in my mail as Mrs. Prouty, or me being addressed in your mail as Mr. Johnson. We spent a lot of years together. No, I won't tell anymore. That's enough. Thank you, Beth, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for what you've done.
If I may, just to finish up, I think all of us in the schools, I think I speak for all of us to echo Janie's comment that it's hard to believe actually that you are gone, but we know that you're only a phone call away. So Beth, thank you for everything you've done, truly.
I feel a little strange just going on to the next thing, but unfortunately, at some point, we have to try to get the meeting over, so.
Did you say meeting adjourned?
The next item on the agenda actually is the Outback Steakhouse, which we're going to table for this evening and move to the Safety Committee update.
We actually have two of our members, if I may, from the Safety Committee here. If you'd like to come on up to the podium, gentlemen. Mr. Giordano is the principal of Auburn Middle School, and Jay Johnson is from our Auburn Police Department, and formerly from Bye Bye Birdie.
Are you going to sing or dance?
I was just going to say,
Not tonight.
cat's out of the bag now, Jay.
Yeah, you wait till the golf tournament next year.
I guess what we brought forward tonight is hopefully a change in policy to make our schools a little bit more safer. And in that, we've been working on a lot of things to make our schools safe for our kids, but this one in particular is a visitor policy. And the way it stands right now at every school, it's different. People come in, they get buzzed in, a lot of times they sign in, and they get a visitor's pass or so, and off they go. We really don't know if these people are actually who they are, who they say they are. So in an effort to tighten up security, we, in conjunction with the Auburn Police Department and the Auburn Fire Department, came up with a new way of doing things, basically. This is a booklet that the person, when they come into the building, all right, they will sign in, their destination, the date, and let me see if I can pull one of these off. Each school has a visitor's tag, and each school is color-coded to have each individual tag different. When the person signs in, they'll drop off their license or a government form of identification, and it will be slipped into the little form next to that visitor's pass. They'll get the visitor's pass, go about their business, and then when they come back and give us our visitor's pass back, then they can pick up their license. And the same thing goes for substitute teachers, and they're all color-coded for different schools. And this will be like one of the first steps in securing our buildings a little bit more. We have an awful lot of ideas as far as keeping the building secure, but this thing right here is one that's kind of paramount. We thought we'd seek your approval on it. Jay, you got that?
If you have any questions, what it is,
If I may just add, Julie, this committee began meeting, its representatives from the school department, Mr. Giordano and Mr. Fahey, our director of facilities, representatives from the police department as well as the fire department. And they really began their work looking at the crisis plans of the school. And they're here this evening speaking about the visitors to the schools policy, but just to update you and to make the community aware that there is such a committee that is taking place behind the scenes. And they can't share details about what they are doing for the reasons that, you know, with lockdown, hopefully we never need to, just about every meeting that I've attended with the safety committee, it's only been a handful so far. I think the feeling around the table from everyone is that we hope we do all these plans and never need to use them, ever. But having well-crafted plans is probably one of our best defenses should anything ever happen in any of our schools. So with this here, and this one here is the sample one for the substitute teachers, it will, and the staff members will be wearing theirs on lanyards as well, make very clear to everybody in the building when someone isn't being identified in that way, whether it's a visitor or a substitute, that staff members will go to them and say, why are you in the building? So we really have made strong efforts to be sure everyone comes in, and important that they come in through the main door and then leave through the main door as well. And with your license being up at the front desk, you'll do that as opposed to sometimes taking the quicker entrance to go out the side door, or leaving with the visitor's pass as I've done in schools, not with these ones here.
Do regular employees wear lanyards with ID?
They have been made for all of them, just recently, actually, through the school photography. So at any school that doesn't have them, we will get them made for them.
Okay, so everybody's wearing one.
They will be soon, yes.
Okay, can I ask one more question? Are visitors escorted to wherever it is they're supposed to be going, or do they just walk?
No, most of the time, if that particular person is going to see someone from the office, usually an administrator will take them.
But they're escorted.
Or so the person comes down to the office. That's, I've experienced, like, going in and then they're called, the person that you're going to see is called down, and, yeah, I
I just didn't know, like, if you're working in the library, or do they walk you to the library?
Well, you know, a lot of times, people that are working within the building, you know, they're not really Cory checked. You know what I mean? And there's kids all over the place. They might be working on the boiler.
Oh, yeah.
This way, they come in, we know who they are, they're identified, their company is identified, they have identification, and the big thing is to leave the license.
Yeah.
You leave the license there, and then you know that chances are that person's legit.
Well, they're going to pay $35 for your
Either that or
license.
they're going to get a new license. But no, when they come back. But I'd like to add one other thing. This is the first attempt of having the school department, the police department, and the fire department working in conjunction with each other to provide safety for our kids. And that's the reason I got involved with it in the first place, because I know our primary purpose is education, but we're also here as like surrogate parents for all these little kids. And I said it to myself, one day we were outside, I was standing with Ann, and I looked at her and I said, you know, we're responsible for 615 kids. And she kind of looked at me like that. So all these little plans that we're making now, strategic plans that we will have a plan. And if we have a plan, then we're going to be ready for whatever happens. And we're not jumping into this real quickly. We're having meetings like once a month, usually at the middle school, but it could be at any school. And we've been to a few trainings, and I think it's a worthwhile endeavor for our kids in Auburn. Kids first.
You'll also notice that schools, we've been having them numbered, the outsides and the insides, that's come from our committee. We do the surveys at the school. We started at JV school. It's one of our first schools, and we're trying to get that one completely up and get the plans all done and do all the trainings on it, and then we'll go from there to the next school and the next school. So.
Wayne?
I'd just like to say thank you to the committee for doing this, because, I mean, when I first came in, and one of my biggest thing was problems with safety in the schools, and there was times where they were leaving sticks in the doors and stuff like that, and I really had a big problem with this. But I'm glad to see that you have a working group specifically for safety for our children in the school system, because I think we desperately need it, and I wish you good luck on it, and kids stay safe.
And not only for the schools, it's actually for the community. They were dealing with busing issues, we're dealing with snow removal, different things like that. But I think what's nice is that all three departments are working together, so that it's not just like one little aspect of it. The whole town's really working together, and it's been exceptional so far. I think we've made an awful lot of progress.
And I'd like to compliment whoever arranged for that back gate to be open on voting day, because that made a big difference in getting people in and out of the high school to be able to vote. So kudos to whoever thought of that one.
We have people talking about different issues, and I think that's very important, that it comes out in the open and everybody can talk about it, discuss it, put your 2 cents in, your 2 cents, and it works out. It works out nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to say that the fact that people are leaving their licenses there, the community needs to understand too, is it's not just so that we know who's walking around the building, but if there was ever a crisis in the building, that's probably going to be one of the things that gets taken outside, and then we know who's in the building. We can account for everybody, so it's a great idea.
Yeah. It'll probably be hard for some people at first, because Mrs. Jones is always coming to the school to see her daughter.
Yeah, that's right.
Or whoever, but things change, and it'll probably be a little bit difficult at first, but I'm sure after a short period of time it'll start running smooth again. We're here to help. Everybody knows how to get a hold of me, John, or anybody else.
John.
John. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Chamber of Commerce School Business Partnership Grant Awards.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Cribbins. On November 12th, the Auburn Chamber of Commerce, the School Business Partnership, held its annual awards breakfast, and this was held at the Hogan Center at Holy Cross College. And I will read to you the names of those teachers who were successful in receiving grant funds, but also want to recognize and publicly thank those teachers who wrote a grant that may not have been awarded funds. It's just as difficult and time-consuming to write a grant that is not funded as it is to write one that is. So I thank all of them for seeking the opportunity to get some extra funds to our schools. At Auburn High School, Karen Fidella and Cynthia Bazinet. At Bryn Mawr School, Carrie LeBreton and Mesa Hamden. At the Julia Bancroft School, Corinne Murphy. At the Mary D. Stone School, Beth Chase and Donna Gates. And at Packagug School, Christine Aristo. So they combined earned approximately $2,000 from the Auburn Chamber of Commerce. And by and large, the funding for that comes from the fall golf tournament that they have at Heritage Country Club. So I wish to extend thanks to the Auburn Chamber of Commerce and congratulations to all of those who wrote grants. Some great, exciting things that will be happening. The next item is, as was done at last meeting on November 5th, the Mary D. Stone School first and second graders have likewise received the same donation to attend the Zula Patrol exhibit at the Ecotarium. I know the Bryn Mawr students went just last Thursday, I believe it was. It was a great trip. The kids had fun. Mrs. Haggerty went with the students as well. And as she just, it was uneventful, which is good for a field trip with 200 first and second graders going, but the kids really enjoyed themselves immensely. So it is my recommendation to accept this donation from the Greater Auburn Chamber, from the Auburn Foundation, excuse me, for this donation.
I'll make the motion. We accept the gift.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
There was also a donation received by Mr. Hanfield for Auburn High School from Ohio Pile in the amount of $44.16. And included in your packet is a thank you note that Mr. Hanfield sent in anticipation of your acceptance of that donation.
I
That's
need
good.
a
I was
motion.
wondering how you pronounced that.
Move to accept the donation from the Ohio Pile.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And the last item in my report is the Integrity Call Notification Update. It's called One Call Now, the program that we have, and it's actually provided to us through French River Education Center. And Mrs. Zotner, Eric Bouvier, and myself participated in an online training last week. We're putting in the last of the phone numbers and also the email addresses through this. And prior to Thanksgiving, I do plan to do a test call out to parents and notify them that this is a test call so that we can accept if there are any last-minute enrollees in the program who have not yet signed up. It will be primarily used by me to notify parents of snow cancellation, if there's any cancellations due to inclement weather, or if we ever need to early dismiss without warning. The principals may ultimately use it for additional things as reminders, but the ones that will come from this office will be primarily for that reason.
Do you have any idea as to the percentage of parents that have enrolled?
Do you have an idea of putting them in?
I would say in 75 to 80%.
Yeah, probably 75 to 80%. And we are inputting staff members in this as well, so that through one call that I will make, all of the staff and any parents who have enrolled, and they can list up to 6 numbers that they can be called on cell phone, work phone, home, as well as email, will all be notified within minutes with one phone call of this. And actually, should there ever be an emergency, we talked about this with the safety committee, it could also be employed for a reason like that, obviously, as well.
How fine can it break down the population? For instance, I got a call this week, using this system. I was just wondering, how fine does it break down the population?
Breaks it down by school, by grade.
By
Ultimately, we could put in, if we learned as part of the training, if, the students for the play, if we wanted to input the names of the students for the play, if the play director had a special announcement to make, working through the principal, a call with one phone call, a call could go out to just those participants in the play. So there are, I want to say, 99 different
Subgroups.
ways we can create subgroups. And they can change. 99 at any given time.
That's a great system.
It is a great system. It is.
Okay, under unfinished business, we have the Auburn High School building update.
I did just want to bring your attention, we did have a project management team school building committee meeting this past Thursday, November 13th, and included in front or left at your seats were the minutes from that meeting. Mr. Ringard is always very quick in getting the minutes out. As you can see, the items, we actually had a pre-meeting at 6 o'clock there were a handful of us, including Mr. Prouty, who visited Auburn High School and saw the bank. I think there were 15 lockers in the bank that had the repair made to them. We inspected them. We looked at a few different lockers, actually, to see, and then went back to the project management team meeting and discussed them. I think the original steel was 32 thousandths thick, and the replacement steel is double that, 64 thousandths. Not saying that well, thick. 64, so from 32 thousandths to 64 thousandths. There was some question in terms of the installation and how that will go forward, but it is a continuing discussion for us. So they have spoken with Penco, and I will continue to keep you updated on that, but it is the belief of the PMT and SBC that this should be taken care of without costing us any money. So that certainly is our goal, to do that. Hopefully, we're thinking that perhaps over the December break, just so that there's ample time to fix the cracks in the tile and put that underlay there. They're thinking it's probably going to be about a 3-foot wide section where they'll take up the tile, apply the underlay, and I think it was about 16 or 18 feet long, if I recall, in one of those areas, and even extending. There is a crack that goes into the women's room on the first floor, and they're going to be putting something in there to take care of that as well. So they're just waiting for an extended period of time when students aren't around so that they can have the area cordoned off.
Good.
And the final piece is there is a pre-construction meeting with Argus Construction that'll be held this Wednesday regarding the Phase 3 of Auburn High project.
Thank you. Okay. The next item is the memo to Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee.
I included this just for your review as an FYI. I've not yet heard from them on it, but I wanted you to just see that the memo had been sent, and I know that both Mrs. Gibbrey and Dr. Bogues will be serving on that with me, so as soon as I hear, I will be in touch with them and inform the committee as a whole as well.
Okay, and then we go to the business and financial report. Mr. Dede.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item this evening is my memo regarding the field usage at Auburn High School. I've been looking to coordinate a meeting with the Parks Department. Unfortunately, our schedules have not permitted us to get together prior to this evening. With my memo, two memos from the Parks Department from last year, both in January and February of 2008. And in essence, they have recommended that no outside non-Auburn groups use any of the fields at Auburn High School. In the brief conversation that I did have with one of the Parks commissioners, he pretty much reiterated that as well. That being said, I am recommending from my earlier recommendation that the committee look at the fee of $125 per hour for the use of the softball and the baseball field effective this spring.
Can I just ask one quick question so that I can clarify something before I open it up for more questions? This does not mean, the fact that they don't think outside, groups outside of Auburn should use the fields, does not mean that they're not going to maintain it. We're going to collect the fee and then pay them to maintain the field. So they're not telling us they're not going to maintain it.
Right.
They just don't want to get involved in trying to figure out what the fee's going to be.
Right, right. Okay. Again, through our previous discussions, when we had the fees approved last spring, the softball and the baseball fields at that time had not been released, so the committee hadn't approved a figure, unlike the football and the all-purpose fields. Now, here we are a year later, and where there is an interest in an outside non-Auburn group, we do need to look at that number.
Okay. Janie?
Based on how much usage they've asked for, what's the total estimated value of this contract at $125 an hour?
At $125 an hour, then you factor in the site manager, et cetera. We're looking at between $7,500 to about $9,000 on the premise that the games that they have do occur.
And that's gross?
Yes.
Okay, what are our expenses associated with that?
Well, we'd have to pay for the Parks Department, the fees that are due them. We would also have to, if there are night games, and they've talked about a couple of night games, if there are any fees associated with that, and again, the revenue to pay that would come through this rental here. And then any materials for the Parks Department in terms of lining the field or any stone dust for the infield as well.
Do you have any estimate of what all that's going to cost? I'm looking for what we're going to net out of this.
Through the chair, I don't at this time.
Okay. Can I ask you one second?
Sure.
Philip? Where does the rental revenue, does the rental revenue from this going to come to the schools or to the parks? Obviously, we pay them to maintain the field, et cetera, so we're going to cover their costs, et cetera. But the rental is coming into our rental account?
Through the chair, the revenue would be deposited into the field usage account at Auburn High School. That is a new account which the committee set up last summer.
Okay.
Wayne?
I had talked to somebody from the Parks Department on this issue too. And they had explained to me it's not as much the money that's involved, it's the usage of the field, the wearing out of the field. And they feel very strongly that it should be Auburn residents only. And that was my experience with this. And, you know, I thought about it too myself prior to this, thinking, you know, maybe it would be good to bring in outside groups and have them pay for it and stuff like that. But then when you listen to somebody that actually is there that takes care of the fields, they do have legitimate questions. And, you know, we're always worried about money and fixing things and everything else, and these things start wearing out a lot more faster when you're having outside groups coming in than having our own groups. So that kind of swayed me back going towards the other way because of that. I think that's a big thing. And their factor was not money. It was strictly the use of the fields. That's all I got to say on it.
I think, anybody else?
No, okay.
I think that, you know, what Wayne just said, I think it falls really back on what Janie asked, and that is what are we netting for the use of the field so that we can put away money to repair some things. So, you know, I don't know if the committee is ready to act on this tonight. I don't know what the consequences are of not acting on this evening, because you do have people who are waiting for answers. I know for myself, knowing what we're thinking of netting for this would be an important piece of information. And I assume that you've looked at other towns and what they are charging for their fields, kind of, and looking at the fact that our fields are, you know, what our fields will give that other fields won't. So are we charging enough? Is $125 an hour enough? I assume you looked at all that. I mean, that was part of your recommendation, but I don't know how the committee feels about. Well, I guess, Dan, what would happen if we didn't act on this evening?
Through the chair, you're correct. I do get sometimes daily phone calls from Worcester State, just touching base on the status of the number. Because regardless of the number, then we would sit down and we would negotiate the contract. And depending upon what the number is, they're looking at potentially up to 10 games starting at the latter part of March through, I believe it's mid-April. And again, those 10 games would be a couple of doubleheaders there as well. Depending upon what the final number is, would dictate if we're looking at potentially 10 games or perhaps even 5 games, or maybe 2 or 3 games just to enable them to start the season. But it comes down to, you know, what would that number be? And again, if it is the $250 per hour, then the other costs involved, you know, I'll know right away if it's even going to happen or not. They may say that, you know, we weren't expecting that and we have to go elsewhere. So I have been in contact, as I said, with Dr. Baker on a pretty regular basis, and he's eager, his AD is eager, and the Vice President for Finance is eager to hear from us so that they can make alternative plans if necessary.
I've got a couple of concerns over this. March and April are our wettest months of the year, which will tend to, reflect back on the field. You're more likely to do a lot more usage damage to a baseball field when it's wet. So you got March and April, which are your wet months. I was also concerned about, the Parks Department is still holding their position that they're not looking for people outside to come in. Not that I'm one that wants to turn away any money here, but I'm not so sure that what we would net is gonna, kind of wash what may happen. So I would want some further information in regards to, the money, the netting out of what this might be or something.
Mr. Dede, correct me if I'm wrong. We voted on this in a prior meeting that we would look at having Worcester State come in and use this field?
Through the chair, yes. You
So-
authorized the
so-
superintendent to sit down and to negotiate a contract with Mr. Gano and myself.
Right.
Was
So-
it actually to sit down and do, or was it to just to,
Explore.
yeah, okay, there's a
Explore. It
difference
wasn't-
between
yeah, you ain't kidding.
sitting down and negotiate a contract
Yeah,
or
right.
exploring the situation.
Exploring, there was no-
That's completely two different things, so.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, yes, I was one that was in favor for, going forward and looking
That
at
was
it, but I am concerned that the Parks Department has got a concern over this. So,
Jane?
If you were to negotiate a contract, could you negotiate an indemnity clause? And so in other words, if, you spit gum on the field and we can't get it out or something like that, is that standard in these contracts?
Through the chair, we have a pretty comprehensive clause in our standard contract. And I referred to the Nichols College contract where we addressed that issue. So yes.
okay.
If I may, is it fair to say through the chair that if there were 10 games, the profit would be between $3,500 and $5,000, what we would net?
Through the chair, yes, that's a pretty good assessment. I think that our cost would be more, but again, I don't want to go out on a limb and give you a number not having the hard facts. I think, too, again, what I'm hearing from Dr. Baker is that if I were to give him a number, for the sake of discussion, say it's $10,000 for 10 games or whatever, then I think that will probably decide, probably terminate the discussions rather quickly, and that's fine. At least we both know where we stand.
Well, just to clarify, what we're trying to do here this evening is we're trying to set a fee. So we're not trying to decide whether or not a specific group is going to use the field. Mr. Dede's asked us to look at a fee recommendation. So, and then once we set the fee, we have to determine whether or not a specific group, we're going to allow them to come in and use the field. But I don't know that doing it the other way around, figuring out a fee based on a specific group is necessarily the best way of doing it.
Through the chair, I would recommend that if you were to remove Worcester State from the equation, that we would at some point in time have to arrive at a fee, because again, when you look at the schedule of fees, the high school baseball and softball fields don't have a cost associated with them as the football and the all-purpose. So regardless of the other, we still have that piece of business to attend to, yes. And I think, excuse me, through the chair, and what has happened is that with Worcester State's request to possibly look at the field next spring, that has brought this discussion to the forefront, perhaps sooner than anticipated.
Janie?
For Worcester State as a group, this is basically a one-time thing for them, because they're going to renovate their own field, and then they're not going to need our space, right?
Through the chair, yes and no. I mean, the intent is that their field be ready in the spring of 2010, but in the perfect world, things don't always happen according to plans. And through the chair, Dr. Baker has informed me that if things don't go according to plan at the college, that there may be the potential for a second year if there were to be a first year.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I apologize because I know you've broken this out many times for us in the past, so I do apologize for not remembering. The $125 an hour is the fee for the usage of the field, but that does not include a site management fee or lights if they use them? Am I correct in saying that?
Through the chair, yes.
That's an additional on top of the
Right.
125?
Through the chair, it would be $250 an hour or $125 an hour. Number 2 would be the cost for the site manager. Number 3 would be the cost for the utilities, for the lights, if there were night games. And then number 4 would be the cost for the Parks Department. So all said and done, the cost for a given game could be well over $1,000, depending upon what number you use as the base to drive that.
So this $125 doesn't include what we would charge for the Parks Department?
Through the chair, no.
Okay. And is there a fee there for, when you were talking about a large group coming in, do we need any police presence there? Do we need anybody helping with parking? Do we, is that then going to come out of this fee, or are we going to break that out as another potential charge? Has that even been thought about?
Through the chair, no, it hasn't, but that, I think, would be a function of the site manager to oversee the flow of traffic on the grounds of the high school.
Okay.
Clearly, though, depending upon the nature of the game, it might require police presence, in which case, again, that would be factored into the potential cost per game.
I imagine if it were a game that was a particular rival or something like that, you might get a large presence and need a police officer, where if it was just a run-of-the-mill, maybe not. I don't know.
I think. But it's talking about the fee, though, that if we thought we needed some sort of police presence there, then that would be additional.
Through the chair, yes.
Isn't that in our standard contract now?
I think it is, yeah.
But if anybody knows anything about college baseball, you know that they draw less than high school baseball, which doesn't draw enough to warrant police presence on the field. If they drew 50 people, they'd be doing much better than they normally do.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, college baseball is not a spectator sport.
Oh, okay.
These are practices.
You know what I'd
these
like?
are practices.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these are
All right.
practices rather than games. I would
That's
like,
right.
because I keep hearing this damage. I'd like to know how many games or how many times for games and practices we used that field last year and what the report of damage is. Because if they're talking about 4 uses or 5 uses, and we used it 100 times last year with no damage, how is 4 more going to do the kind of damage that we were afraid of here? I thought our biggest fear was that we would not have it available for Auburn groups to use.
That was one.
I would be very concerned if we were getting, with the usage that we had, if we were getting any kind of wear after a year or so. And I certainly haven't heard that was a cause for alarm.
Wayne?
The only thing with that, Ron, that I feel is you're going to say you're going to have this group come in 5 to 10 games, then you have another group that wants to come in for 20 games, you have another group that wants to come in for 10 games, all outside groups.
But isn't that our decision?
But that adds up. That's why we're discussing what we're discussing, trying to make a decision on where we're going to go with this. And my other question was to Dan wasn't it one time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it was recommended that it would be $250 an hour?
Through the chair, yes. The $250 an hour is the cost associated with the usage of the football and the all-purpose field. That number, the genesis to that number was from the research, the survey that we conducted last spring. And when I came forward initially, I looked at that number, and on the premise that the wear and tear wouldn't be as extensive as the other fields, we backed it down to the $125 an hour.
Well, I think, our charge tonight is to decide whether we want to charge the $125 per hour for outside groups. Now, if you don't want outside groups using it, then, then that's another story. But, that's the decision we have to make tonight is whether we want, what our fee schedule is going to be for outside groups.
Okay. I'll make the recommendation that we accept the $125 per hour for outside groups for the baseball and softball fields.
Can I
Janie?
ask a question? I'm just curious, Dan, you on the prayer, you said you backed down from the 250 down to the 125 based on terms that it wouldn't get as much wear and tear. Based on what?
Baseball not being a non-contact sport.
Informal, 9 guys in the field instead of, 24 or something like that, digging, running over each other? The nature of the sport, is that it?
In the nature of the sport, informal discussions with Mr. Fay here as well. It was that recommendation that led to the charge from the committee to me then to have further discussions with the Parks Department to get further clarity on the potential usage or the wear and tear of the facility.
And if I...
We need a second before we start
I'm
going
sorry.
any more discussion. Can I have a second to that motion, and then we can ask more questions? There's no second to it?
I'll second the motion, but I'd like further discussion on it.
Okay, go ahead, Jenny.
Okay, and so, has I know the Parks Department is saying, obviously by this letter, that they don't recommend outside non-Auburn youth groups, so I understand that. But did they say anything about the fee, whether they thought that fee was adequate or not adequate? Did they express an opinion on that?
Through the chair, no.
Just use.
Just use?
When I talked to him, it was just use. Fee wasn't even involved.
Well, I assume they didn't feel it necessary to talk about a fee because they weren't in favor of it.
I just didn't know if they, because for instance, I know when we were talking about some of the youth groups in town that wanted to use the field, they were talking about things like stuff that, you're going to excuse my ignorance, but I've never prepared a field. The stuff that they put along the baselines, what's that called?
The lime.
No, dust, some sort of dust.
Stone dust.
Stone dust, okay, they were talking about the cost of the stone dust and how much that costs and stuff like that. And I know that they had talked about, because they were running at the same time I think our kids were or something like that, they were talking about setup costs and that kind of stuff. And they were saying that according to the people that laid the field, it had to be, again, and I don't know what's involved in this, but they said professionally set up, which I'm assuming is what the Parks Department does.
Through the chair, without giving you a figure, yes. Prior to every game, the field would have to be lined. Lines running down the right field line, the left field line. The batters boxes would have to be lined. And also, given the time of the year, there would probably need to be additional work on the pitcher's mound, on the infield, and that's where probably more stone dust than anticipated, again, given the early time of the year and the weather, to minimize the dirt that would kick back. Yeah. Pretty much those are and I'm probably forgetting one or two things, but that's what comes to mind in terms of the preparation of the baseball field.
And those costs have to come out of this 125, or do they come out of the Parks Department fee that you would be putting in the contract?
They would come out of the
I'm
125.
very confused.
Oh, that's, so the Parks Department fee that you said would be attached to the 125 then would be for their
For the labor.
time, the labor?
Labor only.
Okay, and not the materials. Okay.
And just to reiterate, you said these were games or practices?
Through the chair, these are games. They're talking about, again, potentially up to 10 games through early to mid-April, if not half that.
Again, we're not talking about Worcester State, we're talking about the fee. So it doesn't matter if it's Worcester State or any other group, we need to decide whether 125 is an appropriate fee for outside use. Then, if people want to come and use our field for the 125 per hour, then that's for us to decide at that point whether or not groups are going to come in and use them.
I want to retract my motion because I don't know what this 125 is going to cover now. I'm confused as to if you got, and I'm not talking about Worcester State, I'm just talking about in general. If we had somebody that came in, we would charge them 125 an hour, which would have to be for what? And then you've got the Parks Department fee, which would be to cover their labor. But then you'd have the utility fee, which would cover the utilities. So I'd want to know how much it's going to cost us to purchase stone dust or to purchase chalk lines or whatever we have to do, and whether or not the 125 an hour is going to cover our costs.
Okay.
So I'm confused
Janie?
now.
I guess it all comes down to risk and reward, right? I guess if you told me that we were going to make $10,000 on this, which is clearly too high, right? I guess if you're telling me we were going to make $10,000 on 10 games, I'd say maybe I'm willing to see how much wear and tear the field takes and how much they really do beat the field up because you can replace things, et cetera, at $10,000. If you're telling me I'm going to make, $100 a game after all is said and done because we don't know the cost of the stone dust and that kind of stuff, I guess I wouldn't be willing to take a $1,000 gamble.
Right.
So
when
I
you
feel
said
the same way.
about your motion, you can amend it, but you can't take it back. So we can vote on it, and you certainly can vote it down, and then we'll start from there again. So the motion has been made to set a fee for $125 per hour for the use of the baseball and softball field. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Aye.
It would be my recommendation that we get maybe some figures on what would be taken out of that 125, what we're going to net with that, and go from there. Am I correct?
Total breakdown.
Through the chair,
Are you saying we have no fee now for anyone, whether it's in-town groups or not?
for the use of the baseball field?
Yeah.
Through the chair, no, we don't have a fee for the use of the baseball field.
So I think we need a fee.
In the softball
schedule.
field.
Right.
We have
I think that's different
fees for the
who's using
usage
it.
of the utilities, but we don't, those are the last fees that the committee does need to set at some point. And again, as I said a moment ago, with Worcester State's request, it kind of brought this to a head sooner than later. But at some point this year, I would have brought to you a request to look at $250 an hour to be consistent with the other fields, which is the fee.
Janie?
I guess, Dan, I'm assuming that since we have to set a fee at some point, I would ask if we can have what surrounding communities charge, and that, standard information that we got last time. And out of that, what would be expected to be paid, like stone dust or whatever that costs.
Right.
The only
So
problem
that
is when
we
you compare with other communities, not many of them have the same type of field
That's
that
right.
we do.
I think that has to be part of it, or how old the fields are, or I don't, something that kind of gives us some idea of comparison, because I wouldn't want to compare ourselves to a community that has a substandard baseball field.
No, I would just like the cost, know what the cost is to set up for a game.
What is going to need to be taken out of that 125,
Right.
and what we can then put away
Right.
to do repairs or use it for
Right.
something else that perhaps may come up that we need.
Through the chair, if I may, I'd be happy to do a couple of scenarios for you. Look at 125 an hour on the assumption that an average game is 3 hours, then run all the numbers. Secondly, look at 250 an hour. And again, on the premise that the average game is 3 hours, baseball game. And then add to that the other ancillary cost. If there's a night game, it's going to be $50 an hour or whatever for the use of the lights and so on and so forth. Come up with a number, and then with that there, then back out costs that would be paid out, be it to the Parks Department, costs that would be paid out to for supplies and materials, the lime, the stone dust.
Site manager.
Site manager and what have you, potentially police. And again, early, as to the chair, as Mr. Prouty noted, I don't see that as an issue for a college game, unless if later in the season a college team needed a field for playoffs. In which case there would be a larger crowd than earlier in the year, in which case I would truly recommend there that there be a police presence in addition to the site manager.
Okay. And
So,
should we also have a fee schedule for in-town use as well? Can you bring that forward so that we can try to get that established? Is that?
Sure.
Okay. Wayne?
One thing I'm thinking about this, the fee schedules and stuff like that, is wouldn't you think you would have a vote to even accepting outside use?
Well, I think that if we bring...
I mean, if you're going to bring the fees up, I would think if you're going to do all that work, you would probably want to figure out if the committee even wants to go that way. If the committee don't want to go that way, wasting all that time and effort and money, having him do that.
Well, you don't know until he does it.
Right.
Well,
You don't know what the benefit's going to be until he does the research.
If we would have to charge so much to rent that field out that it wouldn't nobody would come and rent our field, then that tells you right there that you're not going to even bother.
well, that's my opinion.
Okay, well, we can certainly put it to a vote if somebody wants to make the motion to ask Mr. Deedy to give us the information that we've talked about.
You need a motion for that?
So you want a motion for outside use and inside use?
No, to get
Or just outside?
information
On the cost.
on the cost of renting it to outside groups.
I'll make the motion.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay?
I'd like to couple with that some sort of an indication of where the Parks Department sees where. Because I think that that's the bigger issue. If there is where, we've got to figure out what's causing it and how to prevent it, even with in-town groups. You talk about infield fill. That's a once-a-year job. That's not every game you don't refill the infield. Every game you lime 300 feet, strip of lime 300 feet. That's not very expensive.
At least.
You put a little quick dry down if there's puddles. That comes in bags, like some kind of soil that you buy at your ag waste store. So, the cost of materials isn't much. It's the cost of labor. But if there is something happening to that field, I think we should know right away.
But the thing
So we
is-
can talk about any kind of use of the field.
That's a good point.
But, right, you can make a good point there, Ron, but the more people we let use it, the more we're going to have.
Well, that's right, and that's why I think we should control who uses it.
But it's the same, you can make the same argument for any field, you can make the same argument for the school, you can make, for the gym, you can make the same argument for any of it, so.
Yeah, you could.
So, but we do rent outside groups for other areas of our schools, so I personally would like to see that information so we can make an educated decision. Any
Can
more
we get that all in one motion? 'Cause the other thing I'd like to see while you're talking about the baseball field is how much use it gets for other sports, because it was designed to be a year-round all-purpose field, and that outfield is designed to be used for other sports all year round. And are we getting that? And are we controlling that? Are we keeping an eye on that? Are we deciding who gets to use that outfield and for what sports and how often and at what cost? And they are using it now, because I'm seeing soccer goals out there.
Well, yeah, they use it for practice
Mrs.
before
Zucker
the
is taking
games.
copious notes, I can
I
see
know
that.
she is. I have great faith in her. She gets it all. But the load comes on you, because you got to translate this and get all these figures for us.
Through the chair, if I may, maybe we could extend the invitation to have someone from the Parks and Rec come to the next meeting and give them an opportunity to tell us why.
I think that's a great idea,
They're opposed
because
to it?
the logical question is,
Use.
they didn't want to talk about outside groups using these two fields, and yet did they have that same opinion when it came to the other fields that were been? So I'd be.
Yeah, I'd like to just
Well,
hear
get
what they
the
have to
memos, and they
say.
said, look back to their memos that they gave you before. Base it on that.
Yeah.
I mean, they got it right there in writing already.
Wait, all it says is wear and tear. I'd like to hear from them. What do they say? There's wear and tear. I'd like to hear from them. I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Okay. Right now, the motion is whether or not we ask Mr. Didi to get us information to help us make a decision on a fee for outside groups for the baseball and softball field.
And all the other stuff we asked him for.
Well, I think that all goes. I think that all goes to the decision that we're trying to make. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No at this time.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Didi.
I voted against.
Okay, Mr. Didi.
Next, I'm requesting a transfer within our CIP. And I've attached in my memo to Dr. Brunel a couple things. Number one is a conversation that I had with Attorney Toomey. Secondly, in meeting with the town accountant, I also had certified from the clerk the minutes from last spring's May town meeting. I'm looking for the committee to approve a transfer of $15,850 from the building rehab into our equipment within the CIP. There is no change in the appropriation for the CIP. It remains the same at $464,850. The change would be removing $15,850 from the building rehab into the equipment. And again, the transfer is to address the unanticipated need for additional desks and chairs at Auburn High School due to the increased enrollment this past year. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can I
Yep,
ask
go
one?
ahead, Jenny.
Those rehab funds, are they out of a specific school or just out of the general rehab line?
The rehab funds, 10,000 is from the high school that was dedicated originally to the repair of the track and fields, which were not at that point yet. And then 5,000, 5,850 would have been for the, from central office to do the asbestos abatement, but we were able to accomplish that task with the dollars from last year's CIP. In doing the transfer, it's removing money from the building rehab into the equipment for a like purpose. The like purpose be, again, in the equipment, it's either for technology or for desk and chairs. So it would be a lateral transfer of equipment for like purposes.
Do you need a
Wayne?
motion for that?
We get the 5,000 out of security cameras. Is that, you're taking that out too?
That, it would be added to that, because in the FY09 CIP, there is one account number for all of that. The total for the equipment is $103,000 for FY09. So we'd be moving 15,850 from the rehab into that account there. Through the chair, to answer Mr. Pryor's question, yes, please, I would like a vote.
We need a motion to approve the transfer of $15,850 from the FY 2009 CIP building rehabilitation line to the CIP building equipment line to pay for desks and chairs at the Auburn High School.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any more discussion?
I just would like, just for, I'm sorry, through the chair, just so that people know that the $10,000 was in the high school budget, it was just on a different line.
Yes.
So, yeah, so it's staying within the high school, so, okay.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The next item is I've begun to document this year the fuel escalation cost for our bus contracts, both the regular ed and the special ed contracts. Last year, when AA Transportation assumed the contract from RH White, their first invoice for fuel escalation was in November, and that was a compilation from August through November. Hopefully, we'll, the next 2 months or so, be able to give you a month-to-month comparison. I would argue, too, that, as you can see from last year, the numbers went up and up and up through the year in both contracts. And as you can see this year, the huge jump between August and September of 08. However, as we all know, looking at gas pumps, that the price is dropping, and they use as the basis for driving this number the NYMEX number that was on the NYMEX exchange in April of 2007. So I am hopeful that the number, as we proceed through the year, would go down.
You don't get anything back, do you? Because I get dollars to donuts that we're below what that was.
It was written on the premise that we would get something back, but it's unlikely that it's going to happen. We're going to watch it very closely. As you can see from last year, our fuel escalation costs were a little bit over $11,000, and the regular ed contract, again, is a compilation of regular ed transportation and also athletics and other trips as well.
I just find this curious that this is August 08 through June 09, so this is where we are right now, right?
September of 08.
Has the October bill not come in, is that the deal?
Yes, correct. That, I haven't done the bill schedule yet. I will tomorrow.
Okay.
It could be in there, just haven't gotten that far yet.
I'm curious what you mean when you say it's written that you could get money back. What's that mean?
If the number falls before a set minimum, then they would be paying us back instead of us, them billing us, we would get a credit. I'd have to look at the language in the contract to see what the base price would be to facilitate that credit to the district.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's rare that occurs, given the numbers on the NYMEX exchange. I guess you have to hit it at a certain point, and you have to build that language into the contract, and it has to stay at that point or less.
Mm-hmm. I'd still be real interested because it's falling on the NYMEX just like it is everywhere else.
Through the chair, again, the NYMEX, the New York Mercantile Exchange, which is what we used to drive our oil costs this year. I do have a meeting with my colleagues this week regarding next year's oil. Oil futures was being traded last week at $2 and something cents a barrel. And again, any one event in both the political climate, if not the weather could change all that, but there are signs of encouragement that we may be looking okay in terms of that commodity next year. Which leads to the question, do we as a district look to lock in on a figure for July 1 of '09 sooner than later?
Take my price checker, Karen, we could do it at 142.
Good. Request to transfer?
Through the chair, as a follow-up to the committee's discussions in the past several meetings, I am requesting a transfer, several transfers, and I've identified for you the various series that we're moving monies about with a rationale, a brief rationale for the transfers. I would ask for the committee's approval to shift these dollars.
I need a motion to approve the transfers as noted on the spreadsheet titled.
I move we approve the transfer of $21,444 as shown on the spreadsheet.
Second.
Discussion?
Through the chair, if I may, that 21,000 was just for that particular line item there, the bottom.
What's the total?
21, 31, 40.
About 40.
I think we could go with a motion to approve the transfers as noted on the spreadsheet titled Transfer Request November 7th, 2008.
Shown.
Second.
I have a question. What does correct placement mean?
Through the chair, when we keyed in the budget, we had keyed in an incorrect number for one, actually for two staff there, so that's just correcting that there.
I'm sorry, say that again?
When we keyed, through the chair, when we keyed in the budget,
Yep.
there is a secretary whose salary is split out of two sources. The line item read that her full salary was being paid out of the operating budget. It's split between a revolving and the operating budget.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The next transfers are transfers that, again, consistent with the policy. These are all transfers within the various function codes. And once again, there are rationales for each transfer. These rationales are submitted to me in concert from the principals, from the leadership team, and I speak with Dr. Burnell regarding these prior to making any of the transfers. None of this has been done yet, obviously, too, because we were down. We're past tense. We're up and running as of 1 o'clock last Friday afternoon. So we will be making these in the next day or two once we get reestablished with Munis.
Okay. Any questions about this?
I'll make a motion that we...
Well, we don't need a
Oh, we don't
motion
need
for
to
this.
anyway?
This is
I'm
just
sorry.
for
Okay.
information.
And lastly is my quarterly update on the revolving accounts, and I wish to speak to a couple of items here, if I may. And if you look on the first heading down to school lunch, as the note indicates there, Mrs. Pitson has encumbered her salaries for the year, for the entire year. And the encumbrance is ahead of the actual receipt of the state and federal reimbursements. Secondly, under the circuit breaker, again, Mr. McInerney's out-of-district contracts are supported in a number of venues. One is through the tax levy dollars, and secondly, and a large part of that is supported with circuit breaker reimbursements from the state. Again, we have encumbered a very large number of tuition contracts for out-of-district placements, and thus that reflects that shortfall there. We do receive reimbursements through circuit breaker 4 times a year, and as I noted earlier, one of the cuts that was made back in late September was the reimbursement through circuit breaker from the 75% to the 72%, but our reimbursement for circuit breaker this year is pretty much in line with what we had projected last year. Assuming all goes according to plan, we would look at a balance in that account in the fourth quarter of about $200,000. Again, that's essentially the fourth quarter payment that we receive in very late June or in early July that we would bring forward as we did this year into the new fiscal year.
A little off topic here, Dan, but we had a big discussion about preschool payments, et cetera, and we implemented a new policy, and I can see here that the balance is positive. How is the policy that we implemented, is it working?
Through the chair, yes. There are 1 or 2 situations, and I think since that policy was implemented, the economy has has tanked further, and I am working with those 1 or 2 people. It's very collegial, very cooperative, and there is sometimes daily communication. Otherwise, I feel it's working well. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And now we go on to policies. We have a staff roles and responsibilities for the second reading.
I'll make a motion we accept on the second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. We have visitors to the schools, and that's for first reading.
Does this incorporate all of the...
It does. Through the chair, it incorporates exactly what was part of the Safety Committee's presentation tonight, yes. And I do want to clarify, perhaps for you here also, but for those who may be listening, when Mr. Giordano had said that we don't query everyone who comes into the school, we actually do query everyone who comes into the school. For any persons who may come to perhaps do repairs on a boiler, they always are escorted by a custodian in the school, so they do not have unmonitored access with students. So I just wanted to make that point clear.
Thank you.
That was important.
Yeah, that was important.
I have a question on this, and you address it, I think, in the last paragraph where you say during special circumstances, such as numerous visitors attending a holiday concert, the building principal may forego the requirement of collecting licenses. And obviously you have to, and the bigger the event, the more necessary it is to forego that. I guess my concern is, where do you draw the line? Because sometimes we have the school council coming in and there may be 15 people. You say you all have to sign in and go through that procedure if there are 15. You have some sort of a visiting delegation where you might have 20 people coming in, or a chamber meeting where you might have 30 people coming in for breakfast. At what point do we say use your discretion there? Because I hate to see it now cast in cement where we get into trouble with those things.
Two answers through the chair. I would say that I would certainly speak with the leadership team, with all of the principals on it, to come up with a procedure that makes sense. But one thing that comes to mind for me in this quickly is a holiday concert, and that was pulled out specifically because those would be people coming in for a specific purpose. They would not have unmonitored contact with students anyway, as opposed to at Bryn Mawr School when they do Rockets to Reading or library on Tuesdays. Those parents would be down in the library, and we had taught today that there's probably about 30 people, and that's how many visitor badges we've had made up for each school. So I think it will really depend on the situation, but I think some guidelines will be established with myself and the principals, but I'm thinking it's the case of that unmonitored access with students, and anyone who's going to be directly working with students down in the library, I want to be sure that they have these visitor badges on them. You know, for the minor inconvenience that during the transition period that I think will result, it's important to me, and I know all of us in the staff, that children get very accustomed to seeing people wearing those specific badges. When they're in a holiday concert, they pretty much come in and sign in, go right into the auditorium or the cafeteria, depending on the school, and sit. And then the children are always escorted out before the parents or grandparents or visitors are let out. So I think that will be the defining line that we'll talk about. Actually, we have a meeting tomorrow.
Makes sense.
Okay. I need a motion to approve policy KI, visitors to the schools, for first reading.
I'll second.
Is it KI or is it K1? It's
KI, yes, KI.
My eyes aren't doing. Okay. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We have the public solicitations in the schools, and that will be for a first reading.
If I may just interject, I think what's really important in this is item number 1, under the second section or subsection, is that no direct solicitation can take place without the approval of the school committee. And I think that's something we should certainly keep in there.
Do we have a motion to accept this for the first reading?
I'll make the motion, but this is just.
I need a second.
Oh, sorry.
I'll second it.
These are
Right.
just fundraising activities? I see it says commercial, but like, what about things like class rings and that kind of stuff? I mean, those are direct solicitation of students.
That is true.
I'm sorry?
That's a good question. I don't know, actually. I've not been here to see how it happens with class rings. The example
Not
that you
I'm
brought up.
objecting to
Yeah,
the fact, I mean,
right,
because we've
right.
done as a group. I'm just saying,
Right.
if we're going to have a policy, how does a weird thing like that fit into
Yeah.
this policy? That's all.
It's sent to the parents' homes.
Is it? So I don't know the procedure of how it,
My daughter brought home.
how it
She
occurs.
brought it home.
Okay.
Usually
Maybe they did bring an
representatives-
envelope home after an assembly at school
Yeah.
Yeah.
by the company.
Mhm.
Would the same thing to apply to school pictures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are just the kind of things that need to be
Yep.
addressed. Should we defer this one?
Well, would that be covered under number 2? No general distribution of commercial literature may take place without the permission of the building principal.
Well, but that is a direct solicitation though of students. I mean, you're asking
Yes.
them to buy something, so that would be one.
But it's a
you might-
general because it gets distributed to an entire class.
I guess then I'd have to ask, what's the difference between 1 and 2? What are you considering a direct solicitation of students or employees versus a general
Where someone
class
came in and talked to
distribution?
individual students or provided something for individual students.
Well,
The other thing, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Janie, because the other thing that you get direct solicitation on is military service. Military groups come in and, you know, try to sell individual students on signing up for some military program.
so yes, I guess I would need some clarification
Yeah.
Colleges do.
Yeah.
between 1 and 2.
Oh,
Yeah,
do
that's
you
true,
want-
that's,
Perhaps
yeah, colleges
table
and,
this.
colleges
Yeah.
in general.
Why don't you, would you like to table this until the next meeting?
Yeah, just so that we can have a little bit of, maybe you could think a little bit more about those things and put it in the policy.
Do we have a motion right now?
Yeah,
We
we
do.
did.
Okay, so we have a motion, so we'll need to, All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll bring this back next week. Advertising in the schools, again for first reading. Does this, would this make, would the yearbooks be allowed to under this?
It would be, that would fall in the clause. However, this will not prevent advertising in student publications. The yearbook is a function of a student. Yes.
Publication, okay.
Yep. But the newsletters that go home through the chair with principals and submissions by teachers would not, that wouldn't be a student publication. That would be, that would not contain advertising.
Okay.
This does not prevent something from, I don't know, an SAT prep course provider would have to go through the principal to get that? Is that according to that first line?
That would be something, that would be considered really under the distribution of flyers, and that would be approved by the building principal. It would be an age-appropriate activity for them, so that would carry it under there.
And so if we had, for example, football games, in the past, have we had, Ron, have we
Yeah,
had
we've had, on football program, we had advertising, yes.
program, but also
Yeah.
signs on the fields?
Well, we talked about that when we got the new fields. Sometimes we have had them.
I believe we did on the old high school.
Yeah, the high school
Yeah,
had
but we
advertising
don't
on the
now,
field.
do we don't now.
So
Through the
this
chair,
would
we-
prohibit that from happening.
We've talked about it numerous times as a venue for revenue stream,
Yeah.
for athletics. We haven't come to any conclusion, the type of sign and the size of the sign and, what should the sign be? Should there be 100 signs or 10 signs? What it would cost, so forth.
Wayne?
I think the Parks Department had a program like that because they had the signs up at Lemansky Park now that
Yeah, that
used to
wasn't
be
the
down.
Parks,
It
though.
used to be down at
It
that.
wasn't the
was
Parks.
a high school.
The Booster
Well,
Club had
whoever
it for a
was,
while,
the
the Little
sign
League had
man.
it for a while. It was all the different town groups.
Yeah, 'cause
It wasn't
they
the
were on-
Parks Department.
They were on the Little League field.
But
Right,
still,
it
it
was-
was done.
Right,
Yeah.
right, but it was, like I said, that was town property, and so that went through different venues.
Well, this does say permitted in school buildings or on school grounds or properties without the permission of the
Right.
school committee. So if we elected to go that route, the policy
We could.
does permit that sort of latitude.
Right.
Which I think is the appropriate. Okay, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept for first reading.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Relations with booster organization. I guess I have to ask what the purpose of this
Yes.
is.
It, through the chair, several of the policies that are currently in the policy book that you had accepted at one time are ones created by MASC, the Mass Association of School Committees. And in speaking with Glenn Kuchar and Michael Gilbert from MASC, there are some policies which are more a statement of general support, recognizing the value of booster organizations, and I think this would certainly be a policy stating that
We're
you
just
support and
recognizing.
just
we're
recognizing it, yes.
But there's no real,
They would not come to...
literally, there's no real relationship between the schools and the
Correct.
boosters.
They would not need school committee approval on things. It does in here say, that would be evaluated, but that would be by the appropriate person. The athletic boosters would be through Mr. Garner and Mr. Hanfield at the high school, just so that they're in keeping with the mission of the schools.
Right.
But it's generally a policy endorsing in the support of booster organizations.
Can I ask, are PTO groups covered under this, or is this strictly booster organizations?
This one is boosters, is actually a separate one for PTOs and other organizations like that.
All right. We have
No, we need a motion.
Through the chair, before a motion is made, I just want to, as full disclosure, that I am the president of the Booster Club. However, this in no way benefits the organization. And also, I've checked, and I can vote on this, but
Okay.
I just wanted as full disclosure.
Okay.
Excuse me.
All right. I need a motion, please, to accept this policy. KJA for the first reading. I need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and then we have the last one, video usage in the classroom, first reading.
If I may propose an amendment for your consideration, if you look under number 1, video usage, item B, the non-instructional use, this policy is really intended for usage in the classroom, an educational purpose. So I would suggest that we amend by removing that section, and as deemed necessary, maybe a separate policy, but it really is not in keeping with the intent of everything else in the policy.
So you're just saying omit?
Omit B, I would, yes, under number 1B.
Given the fact that classroom would suggest it needs to be instructional.
Right.
So we need, I think there is a need for a policy for non-instructional use of videos. I can think of a situation maybe if the kids are taking a long bus ride to Quebec or someplace, and there's videos that are going to be shown on the bus. That would be non-instructional use.
Yeah, I'm sure anybody who talked to a parent in the community about video use would would complain about the use of the videos during times that the parent perhaps felt should have been instructional time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're saying that that's going to be addressed in a different policy, then that's fine. But that's something that I think really has to be addressed by policy, because no parent wants to, send their kid on to school the day before a holiday to let them watch videos.
That's right.
Right.
And I think that's why Dr. Brunel is saying take that out, because you're in no way then suggesting that non-instructional use for a video is acceptable in a classroom. So with that taken out, then what's left is the only way that a video can be used in the classroom.
Is there language in here then that expresses, that says this is the sole? I would suggest then that we add language to this that says these are the sole reasons that you can use video in a classroom. I would suggest that somehow that gets worked into this.
What you could do is with, through the chair, under instructional use, remove primary, and the use of videos is for instructional purposes only. And that would incorporate it all there.
I'm sorry?
So remove primary
Yeah.
from instructional use, so the sentence would read, the use of videos is for instructional purposes only.
Okay. Okay.
And then will there be are you putting together some guidelines then that go along with this, that will talk about how a video is used in a classroom effectively?
Yes, and in fact, this has been brought to leadership team perhaps a month ago. It was a couple of meetings ago that we discussed this. I sought their input on it, shared with the principals a sample procedure that had been used in a neighboring community on how they had implemented it, and all had agreed that they would have discussions, and some already have, in fact, with their staffs about how this policy will be implemented. So we will certainly do that.
I know one one town that somebody from one town that I was talking to talked about the fact that a video, they don't have lights on in the room while the video is going on, so that the students realize that it's for instruction, and then they are supposed to turn the video off periodically and talk about
Right.
what's been going on. So, there's a lot of ways to approach the use of
They do
videos
have
in
lights
classroom.
on. You said they did not. You
They're,
meant
I'm sorry, that
they would
are-
leave the lights on,
They have
correct.
to leave the lights
Right,
on, yes.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Interesting. Okay, so I need a motion to accept this policy for the first reading with the elimination of B under video usage, and to change the language in the first sentence to read the use of videos for instructional purposes only.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a couple of questions. Yeah, I have.
Okay,
All right, and they're really questions, and I just don't want us to get in a situation where we're forced to go outside the policy to do what we need. And I would ask you about this. How does this affect multi-class field trips to see a particular film? A new version of Macbeth comes out. You say to your English classes, we're going to take 3 English classes and see the new Macbeth at a theater. Are you going to say, well, you can't have that because it's to a larger group than
But that's not a video. I would.
Are you saying this is just videos, not films?
Just in classroom.
In-class videos.
That's what
That I
that's
think-
the way I look at it.
Would come under field trips. And that would be approved by the principal.
Okay, and you're
It
saying
would
this
meet
would
with
not
curriculum.
prevent that, and this would not prevent what we now have frequently, fundraising or interest promoting by organizations such as Invisible Children or Amnesty International, who often have film nights that in the school to do that for.
Do they do those during school hours, or do they
No.
do those
No,
at
those are-
night?
Yeah, done at night. And finally, I guess I would say, let's be very careful, and this is really in number 3, where it says what you can use as videos. We have classes called Film Appreciation, which would certainly not operate if you didn't run rental videos. In fact, the standards, the Mass English standards require almost that film and video appreciation be part of the English language curriculum. So I'd hate to have a policy so tight that teachers felt that they were constricted in what isn't really a usage that we would approve of for videos and films in classrooms and in schools.
Are you referring to 3C?
Yeah.
But those have restrictions.
Yeah, aren't those legally restricted on?
I don't know whether they're legally restricted or not, but I don't know how you run a film appreciation course without access to those.
If I may, through the chair, with the fair use provision of copyright law, I did take a look at that. If you go on to 1A, as long as it's used with students in face-to-face instruction with the teacher, that there be dialogue about it, that it's correlated to the curriculum frameworks that we have, used in a normal instructional setting, not in a large group, an auditorium, then it could be used. And actually, I think Mr. Prouty raises a good point, and if I may, through the chair, suggest an amendment to 3C, that it read, commercially rented videos carry individual restrictions and may be shown only with the approval of the principal. And that way, they would speak to the principal in advance, and they would have an educational connection. I think it allows for that discretion that I do think is very necessary to have.
Okay, the person who made the motion, will you amend? Will you make that amendment as well? I don't know who made the motion.
I did. Yeah, I amend my motion to.
You amend your motion.
I
You amend your
I
motion.
amend my motion to include the revision in 3C. Does that work?
To include the change.
And who seconded it? I'm
Jamie.
sorry.
Jamie. Yeah, and I'll send
Okay.
my second, to include the changes to 3C.
Okay, any more discussion? And what was you had a concern, the second concern?
The second concern was, we do have school organizations that, and this is in an after-school setting, that show videos, either
Right.
to recruit people, to get students to do
And
certain
I think
things
that
like they
that-
would for Amnesty
Right,
International.
and I think that
or
would
for
be addressed
Invisible
in
Children.
the other policy that we were talking about, because this is for
It must,
classroom.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
would just-
but that's a good point, I didn't think about that, so.
And I do think, really, the intention of this policy is to ensure that, the reward, the entertainment of, while they're fun movies and videos to watch at home, ones that we show in schools should have a connection to the curriculum. And the Invisible Children, there was a movie that was showed with that I went up to the high school to see, and clearly had an educational connection with community service learning that those children are doing. So, to me, that would allow for this as well.
Okay, all
Well, I
right.
think we had a motion, but I don't think we voted.
No,
didn't.
so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent, and we don't need to have an executive session this evening?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Executive session? All right.
Okay, I need a second, does anyone second it? All those in favor? Aye.